Hopefully this will make a bit of sense. This is for a print and play game I finally got around to. It was put out in 2017 called Kaiju Siege. Now, effectively, this is kind of like a worker placement. Actually, I shouldn't say it's like. It is a worker placement game. I apologize, but trying to find meeples in so many colors, I'm just using cubes for everything. So I'm kind of explain the setup, what the cubes mean, quick little run through of maybe a turn or two, and we'll go from there. This is actually the initial setup. Your black cubes right here are two allies over here in Hakone. Now, my pronunciations are probably just awful. These red markers are wall damage markers. Come on, camera. There we go. You have two blue cubes up here. These are your warriors. The difference is you have peasants over here in those two orange markers. So you have warriors, you have peasants. They are both considered workers for the sake of gaining workers. They each have exclusive roles, and we'll go through that as we go on. Now, up here is kind of a weapon tracker. This is used to pay to put your workers into a place, as well as certain other abilities that go on. Over here is your time marker. You have 10 rounds to do everything. Now, I will kind of just cover rules as I go through what the spaces do, that sort of setup and everything else. Now, I apologize right now for just kind of how this thing is set up, but for a print and play, this is maximized for me, so that seems kind of terrible to say. You will be fighting Kaiju. Now, over here, I have a wonderful uncut sheet. I'll show you. There's actually about 6 or so Kaiju. I'll try and go the simplest one first. This is the one right here. Now, the Kaiju basically have two things. You have this attack wheel. I think it's called a cycle. And you'll see, I'll bring this in. I'm sure you can see it from there, but just to be very clear. You see that there are pip die faces. Those die faces are only for setup. After that, everything just kind of cycles about. Because what you're going to do is you're going to roll a d6. Luckily, this game uses standard d6, no custom dice, anything special. You roll that. As long as it's not a 6, you find the corresponding marker. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I rolled a 1. I take this tracker, and it's going to start right here. I'll explain what all those symbols mean, but that's that. Now, sliding this slightly off to the side, there are also these spaces. There are 6 of them. Bring it all in frame. Number 6 up here is the Daimyo Castle. And that's basically kind of like, that's the one you really don't want taking damage, but at the same time, you don't want to take damage, period. But that's not how a game works, right? So here's my wonderful Kaiju. I'll be putting on the 1 marker. Now, let me move some of this stuff off so I can pick this sheet up back and forth. Where the Kaiju is located is important because you see here the little don't or, symbol, the no symbol. When the Kaiju is, for example, on 1, you'll take one of your trackers. There we go. Thank you, autofocus. Right here. The manual says gray. Finding gray cubes wasn't as easy, so I'm just using white ones. And you basically block off that action. So they cannot go over here to the farmstead, I think it is. Obviously, the names aren't important. It's what the action is. This is basically your recruit station. If anyone's ever played a worker placement game, it's getting more workers. And obviously, you're not going to be able to do that from that exact action. Now, what can you do? Well, it depends on which workers you're using. This thing is nicely color-coded. Let's see if I can show you this. You are going to see, here are orange spaces. I hope that kind of shows up. Probably not as well as I could. Here are gray spaces, which means anyone can go there. Here is a blue space. Wow, that camera's really not picking it up. You'll just have to take my word for it. Blue means only a warrior can go here. Specifically warrior. I'll get to that in a second. Only peasants can go here. Anyone can go on these. That's very important for what those spaces do, and each person does something different. Now, let's just go through the spaces real quickly. Here you will see a 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7. That seems confusing at first. It's really not. Depending how many total workers, that also includes allies, the black cubes. So if you have any black cubes in there, they count as well. In order to use this, if there are 1 to 3, you only need 1 worker. Sorry, 1 peasant, technically. If you have 4 to 6, it will require 2. If you have a full-blown lot of guys, it requires 3 just to get one more worker. When you use the recruit worker, which is both there, and here, that means you can get either a peasant or a warrior, and then put them up in the garden. The garden is just right here. It's just kind of like a holding zone. It's where everything returns to in between phases. Section 2 down here is that section 2 and section 4 are related to section 3. I know I'm going really fast. I'm sorry. When a warrior is here at the end of at the end of the phase, because it goes phase 1, we roll to see where the kaiju is going to go. Phase 2, we place workers. Phase 3, wherever the kaiju is, they're going to attack. Then we resolve worker actions. So I'm jumping around a little bit. From here, this guy can either go here or here. So if he goes over here, then next turn comes around, and during the resolution, he can choose to either go over to here and then wait another turn, get this action, or he can return home right now and just get a worker. Why do you want to go here? Here is the only place you can get allies. Now, allies are special. They're effectively warrior pluses, with the exception that they cannot go here to to do what warriors do, and they can't go up into here to do what warriors do. We'll get to that. There are a selection of daimyo cards. These effectively define what the allies do and give you a once per game power. There we go. So basically, you can choose, for what they do. They're all very different. I'm actually very impressed by that. For a print and play game, there is a lot of variety in these setups. So you'll get one of these every game just to define what your allies do, but also give you one extra power for mitigation. And now over here, you can either go home with 2 extra weapons, or you can go here to get 6 extra weapons. And I'll explain weapons momentarily. They are not quite the lifeblood, but they're very important for what things do. Over here, the 5 section. This is just getting weapons. Obviously, one peasant will get you 1, 2 will get you 2, 3 will get you 4. Okay. Now the 6, this is a special part, the castle itself. You will see 2 black spaces. You can either have 1 warrior, or you can have 2 peasants there. If a warrior's here and it goes to phase 4, so after the kaiju attacks, then this guy can go up here to this space. He cannot get to this space on his own. He has to wait here. Comes to 4, he gets to go up here. If he's here and the kaiju is here and attacks, he can prevent 1 damage. Because basically, this thing is going to tick away damage. All these start at 1. Goes to 2, goes to 3. It hits 4, you lose. So, obviously, preventing 1 damage is huge, because otherwise, these spots here, these wall spots... Sorry, camera. There we go. These wall spots can be repaired. Now, these red areas here, you'll take my word, they're red. They're kind of orangey, but they're red. Here and here, they require 2 peasants to repair. So if I put 2 peasants here and we go to phase 4, we can actually start to push the tide back. Now, the nice part about this, even though everything starts with a damage on them, if I go to phase 4 and provide the kaiju is not here, because that won't work in those spaces, I can actually take this cube off the board, basically giving the walls an extra point of prevention. That's awesome. Now, let's go back to the kaiju attack. I'm jumping around. You will see that there are the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. But then over here, you have a 1, a 2, 3, a 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have a 1, 2, and a 3, 4. That matters because, back to our kaiju spot. There we go. As this marker is going to roll around during the attack phase, it will attack that specific section. So this will attack the right wall section, the meeple section 3. Jumping from sheet to sheet. So you'll see it only hits there. It hits on a 2 and 3 here, hits on a 3 here, a 2 and a 3 will hit there. 2 is real bad. It just kind of hits everywhere. That damage is very important because any worker who is on the wall in that space, whether it is a peasant, it is a warrior, or an ally, they are removed There is no way to basically save them. They're just done for. There are a few daimyo powers that let you do that, but they're knocked out first. The tower count is important because that's how much damage it's going to do. Now, let's just assume, for the sake of everything, you were here. The wall took 2 hits. You had a guy here. He got smoked. Right side takes 2 hits. 1, 2. There is something called the crumble effect. Wall crumbling in the rules. This will then match it. Boom, boom. So obviously that's very bad. However, if a peasant is on that side of the wall, so we had the kaiju hit here on the right side, it goes down 1, 2. If someone is here, a peasant specifically, not a warrior, on the left side, they will prevent the crumble effect. That's awesome. Now, what about if you had 2 peasants and they used a 3 to hit this guy? If this guy is here, he can prevent 1 damage and then go running home. However, if the kaiju is, say, right here, hits this wall, does damage, then during phase 4, the resolution worker actions, they, the peasant, can repair 1 damage. If it's in the red, it will require 2 to pull it out of the red. So we've covered severe damage, we've covered regular damage. Now you're going to say, well, what about these spots here? I have not covered that. Basically, if the kaiju is in 2, and you put a warrior there in 3, because you can. If the kaiju was here, you couldn't put him in there. If it's in 2, what that basically says, you can't go that way. You have to go this way. So being in 2 does not cancel out this action. It simply says you can't go out that way. Because basically the kaiju's here smashing things up. You're not going to try and go past them on a horse. It's not going to work. Now, what about those attack symbols? Now, if there are any warriors left on that wall section, so let's say it hit the right side, whatever. So let's just sake of argument, I went crazy. I put down a bunch of warriors. I need to do damage. It took out this guy. Okay. I then get to roll D6 against the kaiju. Let's go back to our guy right here. On a 4 or better, I will take away 1 point of health per warrior that I'm rolling on. So I'm going to roll dice for all of them. That's why you're actually recommended to have a couple of D4. That weapon count, which you use when you go to place a warrior on a wall, you have to tick away one of those weapons to place it. You have to have them all ready. The rules are very specific about that. You can't get weapons and then place like, no. You have to have the weapons ready to go when you're ready to place it. When you are rolling, if for each person you're throwing on, you may spend 1 weapon to rethrow that die once. Okay. That's going to be very important down here where it needs a 6 to hit. That's kind of really important because I use 4s, 5s, and 6s. When it gets to here to finish them off, I need 6s only. So I better, have full of weapons and keep re-rolling trying to hit that 6. All right. It's pretty basic. But when you get down to 10, your castle needs to, for you to win, there's only one condition for you to win. You have to kill them by the end of 10 and have 2 damage or less. 2 severe damage, sorry. 2 red less. So obviously up here, this can sink your entire ship. You also can lose if this whole thing is destroyed. If both of these cubes manage to end up in the same section, that wall is over, kaiju gets in. You lose again. So obviously the classic, there's only one way to win, there's multiple ways to lose. But everything works very smoothly. Once you get in the flow of the game, you're knocking out rounds 1-2 minutes. This game is going to take you under half an hour once you're familiar enough. I did my second play, I was barely referring to the rules. I was mostly referring to it just to see that I wasn't, I was either doing the most that I could or I couldn't do things right. The biggest ones are that if this guy gets sent up here in phase 2, so you roll to see, wrong sheet. You roll to see where the kaiju goes, phase 2 worker placement, you can pull him back. Otherwise, he can just stay up there waiting to prevent 1 damage because there is no damage prevention over here. You just, that's your damage prevention. They can fix it, but there is no damage track because he's just always going to knock there. Now, the one thing worth noting, you have these question marks here. So when you go to do damage, so it goes kaiju move, worker placement, kaiju attack. When it goes to kaiju attack, let's just say this thing's here, you roll a d6. It comes up right here, say 2. So let's just say I was here. I go 1, 2, resolve. So it is very dice driven. It is very dice driven, but it's a smooth running game. It has a good challenge. The daimyo cards give you lots of different ways because they dictate the allies. You know, why are you going down here? Why are you trying to do those sorts of things? If somehow, after playing, you have 4 kaiju, there are 2 more, including a random Godzilla. There is a tower defense version with these guys. That part's awesome. So I mean, like, there is variety already inherent in the game. You have 5 regular kaiju. You have the tower defense version with a bunch of little giant spiders running around. You also have mission cards. There are no benefits to these mission cards. It simply is that there is another goal you have to have done. That's it. It's not like, oh, complete these and get like 3 extra workers. No, you just have to complete them. That's it. There's no specialty to it. The only gripe I probably would have is, let's bring them all in here. All the components you're looking for, the number of colors. Now, the dice do not have to be a specific color. And there is actually a very nice, let's see if I can bring them in the shot. There is a nice printout if you don't have all the right cubes. So if you want to use those, you can use those. I just had the right colors, give take of cubes. But you need them in several different colors. This comes from missions. Certain missions need a tracking cube to see who's carrying, you know, that object. I think it's a fan. For print and play, this isn't one of those for what it is. For print and play, this is better than what you kind of should expect for print and play. For a game, period, a solo game, period, this is really awesome. I like how smooth it runs. I like how simple it is. The challenge seems fair because you're always doing mitigation. But, you know, even though the walls start with kind of ding on them, you can get these cubes off so you don't have to worry about this wall for a little bit. So there's plenty to try and do. I'm looking right now. Yeah, there's just a bunch of crazy different versions of different kaiju that for you to do, and that's pretty awesome. There's simply just a lot of love that feels like it was put into this. Someone who clearly, one, likes monster movies, but also seems to like worker placement. They seem to have an idea of what a worker placement kaiju fight should be, because you have dedicated tasks, you have spots that can be used by both, spots that can be used by only one, you have very clear-cut roles, you have a variety in setup. So if this seems interesting to you, you only need this can easily be done black and white. I'll definitely say it's much better in color to kind of see what's going on. I'd print it out. I'd give it a play. I'm not gonna throw a rating on it because I only have 2 plays in it. I'm very happy to have this in my collection. I'm looking to probably get more plays on it. It's a quick takeout. It's a quick play. It actually feels very satisfying. Like, even when you get those really quick pandemic losses, but this is a solo game. What's the difference there? It is meant for one player. You don't have to work 2 roles. You're entirely in control. You are the alpha gamer. You're the quarterback. Nothing about this is designed for a second player to be interacting. This is designed that if you're there, you're playing alone, everything works well for playing alone. It's not a variant. It is the entire game. So hopefully this helps some people, or even just bring it into awareness. Look on Board Game Geek for Kaiju Siege and give it a try.